I want to talk about Josh McDaniels, the Raiders, Patriots offensive coordinator position here moving forward. McDaniels up there at the podium yesterday in black and silver, getting introduced as the Raiders head coach. There were some moments there where I thought the look on his face was kind of like, did I make a mistake? You know, maybe those were just some of the freeze frames that we got, right? Some of the confused looks or the bewildered looks of Josh McDaniels. But I've gone back and forth on this so many times because I think that there's definitely two schools of thought here that are both correct. And I think that's what makes this thing a little bit tricky for me. Josh McDaniels is a good football coach, right? He is a good football coach. I think that's a fact that it can't be disputed. At the same time, on the other hand, the Patriots might benefit from having some fresh ideas and having some fresh perspective on the offense, right? So both those things can be mutually exclusive. Like they can both be true. But I have a tough time looking for where they go from here in terms of, you know, is this a good thing for the Patriots ultimately that Josh McDaniels is out of the building? Because you lost a good football coach with tons and tons of experience that's coached at the highest level in the biggest of games. But you also have to recognize that at times the offense has not been what the Patriots needed to be moving forward.
Yeah, so I don't know that we can fully answer that question yet because we don't know who's replacing him, right?
Fair
I
enough.
think if they bring in Bill O'Brien and it's seamless with Mac Jones and he can add some of that more modern stuff into the offense, I don't know that it's necessarily a good thing McDaniels left, but I don't know that it's a
Yeah.
bad thing either, right? You kind of took that next step. That's
Right.
the NFL. That's what happens. If they bring in somebody who's over their head and suddenly Mac Jones' play looks shaky and the offense takes a step back,
Yeah.
then yeah, you're going to wonder, wow, what, if McDaniels had stayed, would they have kept making progress? So I don't want to take a total cop out answer, but again, I don't think you can answer that question without knowing who's next. I think they have it creates a big time situation and a very important decision for Bill Belichick here. And, let's hope he gets it right. But, was it when Bill O'Brien left? I remember people talking about, well, is this a bad thing that Bill O'Brien
Right.
left? And boom, Josh McDaniels comes back and they win 3 more Super Bowls. So let's see how that goes first.
So I agree with you that you need to see the hire first. I also agree with something that you just said about how big of a decision this is for Bill Belichick. I think everybody understands the gravity of that, right? I think that we recognize Mac Jones in his second season, young quarterback, trying to usher in a new era of Patriots football, all that type of things, the rebuild, all of it. This to me is a potentially career swinging move. And I know that that sounds really like, you know, big, but what I mean by that is he cannot just, to me personally, unless they really feel very strongly about some of these in-house candidates, losing a coordinator like Josh McDaniels with that kind of experience, with that kind of responsibility, and replacing him with Mick Lombardi is a tough stretch for me. I think you really need to get somebody like a Bill O'Brien that has coached before in the NFL at that level, that has coordinated, that has called plays. Maybe that's even been a head coach, because that is such a big role and such a big responsibility with the young quarterback that I have a really tough time going the promote from within route. And I think Troy Brown's going to be a good coach in the future. I actually think Nick Caley is a pretty good coach, and Mick Lombardi very well might be a very good coach. Who knows? But to promote one of those guys and give them play calling duties, give them mentorship of Mac Jones without being experienced with coaching experience at this level, at that magnitude, of that rank in the hierarchy. To me, when I look at what's gone on the defensive side of the football, the fact that he's given Steve so much power over there, I feel like if he just promotes from within and promotes one of his assistants from within, it sounds to me a whole lot like what's going on defense, right? Like it really feels to me
Right.
like a little bit, especially, and no offense, I'm not saying anything negative about a guy like Mick Lombardi, but that definitely sounds a lot like what happened with Steve, right? You promote one of your best buddies' sons to OC, you know?
Right.
This is a decision that I think needs to be handled a lot better than how they handled the coaching hierarchy on defense, I guess is the point I'm trying to make. They need to get somebody in here that has experience, that has chops, that has coordinator experience, that has maybe, like I said, been a head coach. This cannot, I see a lot of like things out there that this cannot be Brian Hoyer, right? This cannot be Troy Brown, in my opinion. There's too much on the line for those.
Here's the other, real quick. Here's the other thing to remember about Brian Hoyer. People keep saying, make Brian Hoyer the quarterback's coach, make Brian Hoyer the OC. That's great if he wants to do that.
Yeah.
What you people need to understand, first off, there's going to be a market for Brian Flores to be a backup quarterback, whether it's in New England or elsewhere. What he did with Mac next year, he has a job in the NFL if he wants it.
Yep.
He's going to, as a backup quarterback, he's going to get paid close to 10 times what he would get as a quarterback's coach or an offensive coordinator, okay?
And he has to work half the hours doing it, by the way.
Right.
Yeah.
So, look, if he wants to step away and coach, he's more than welcome to step away and coach. And then, yeah, I think making him the quarterback's coach is an excellent idea. Would you take, would you take a 10th of your current salary to work twice as much and you don't get to still be, living out your childhood dream of a career? Probably not. So just remember that when it comes to Brian Hoyer. You're asking to walk away from a lot of money when you want him to be a coach.
So I threw out a bunch of names. We've thrown out a bunch of names about who could possibly succeed McDaniels. In my opinion, I think the Patriots need to get 2 guys to replace Josh McDaniels. I don't think 1 guy is enough. I think that Bill O'Brien comes in, calls plays, and gets the offensive coordinator title. And I would also think about bringing in a full-time passing game coordinator as well, like some of these other teams have, whether that's a Joe Brady, whether that's taking a Chad O'Shea out of Cleveland, whether that's a Zach Robinson, right? A former Patriots backup quarterback in Los Angeles. I think that you need to get 2 guys to replace 1 here because McDaniels was so entrenched in this system, so entrenched in what they were doing here and in the program. Now, I'm not sure that 1 guy is enough to replace all that Josh McDaniels did for the Patriots offense. I think that it can be fresh ideas. I think that they can benefit from all of that sort of stuff. But I really think that they need to have a really good structure on the offensive side of the ball. And if it was me, I would definitely look at replacing McDaniels with 2 people. And I personally would vote for Bill O'Brien and a guy like Joe Brady. I don't think that will happen. I think it will be more connection than that. Maybe Bill O'Brien calls up Tim Kelly, his offensive coordinator in Houston, and brings him with him to the Patriots as a quarterback / passing game coordinator. I think that we're underestimating just a little bit because we are excited to see what this offense could turn into under different hands and under a different vision. We're underestimating a little bit all the responsibility that Josh McDaniels had, right? And all the things that he did and all the things that he touched on. He was able to run the offense by himself. He was able to run the offense as a one-man show in terms of being like the head coach of the offense. Now I think like they need to be able to have multiple guys that are like that. And I'm just not convinced about any of the guys that are in-house, to be honest with you. I just don't know if any of those guys can really bring on any more responsibility than they already have.
I agree. Again, I want a veteran. I want a guy who's been there, done that. And that's O'Brien. Maybe it's Chad O'Shea.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I don't buy the Joe Judge thing. I know you're in on Joe Judge. I don't buy Joe Judge.
But the thing is I don't buy Joe Judge as the play caller. But if they want to bring in Joe Judge just to have another adult in the room on the staff, then that's a different story, right?
Okay. Bring Joe Judge back as the special teams coordinator. He doesn't need to be. They can get another adult in the room on the offensive side of the ball. Go get Kevin Falk. I know Deion Branch just took his new job at Louisville, but maybe you can convince him that that's a quick stay or something. Let Joe Judge do special teams.
Sure. Joe Judge can do special teams. I just think that they got to get 2 guys. And especially if Ivan Fears is actually going to retire as well. Because if they're losing McDaniels and Fears in the same offseason, then they got to replace a ton of brain power on that offensive side of the ball. And I think that they need to go out and get multiple guys to fill those shoes. I don't think that it's as simple as, we're going to promote Vinny Cincinnati from assistant running backs coach to running backs coach, and we're going to bring in Chad O'Shea to be the coordinator, right? I don't think that's enough for that side of the football. What are your thoughts on McDaniels and with the Raiders, though? Do you think that this is going to work out? Because something it tells me, I'm not saying he's going to win a Super Bowl there. I'm not saying he's going to start a dynasty with the Vegas, but I actually think he's going to fare a lot better this time around than he did last time.
I think he can have success there. The real question to me is, what do they do with the quarterback? right? And he was pretty non-committal when it came to Derek Carr yesterday, like one way or the other. And I didn't expect anything different. I didn't expect him to say, yeah, we're going to sign him to a new 10-year deal, or yeah, we're going to move
Right.
on. But they can kind of go either way. I feel like the Raiders might push him to get a new quarterback, because isn't that why you hired Josh McDaniels after what he did with
Not
Mac
from this
Jones?
class, though. Like, that's the thing. If I'm Josh McDaniels, I'm not latching my wagon to any of the
No,
quarterbacks
but
in this
that's the
class.
thing. Like, you have another year at Carr.
Right.
So, I mean, maybe you take a guy in the 3rd round, 4th round this year, right? You take a flyer, but you give Carr one more year, and then you go look at it. I think Carr is a good quarterback for Josh McDaniels' offense. So if they do stick with him, I think there could be something. The other thing is that division's just so tough with
Yeah.
Mahomes and Herbert and probably Rodgers, right? We think Rodgers is going to Denver. So how long of a leash do they give him? That's the other thing.
Yeah.
They might win, like, they realistically, if they win let's say the next 3 years, what did they win this year? 10 games, 11 games?
10
Let's
games.
say they win double-digit games the next 3 years. There's a real chance they miss the playoffs all 3 of those years, winning double-digit games.
Yeah.
Like, so is Josh McDaniels a failure or what? It's a really interesting spot. I think, does he succeed? It depends how you want to define success. I think he's going to win football games. I think he's going to have the Raiders competitive. Look, if he can get a quarterback like a Mahomes or a Herbert, then that would be a home run. But I think he'll be all right. It's just a matter of how long's his leash.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of why I think that he wants to hang on to Derek Carr, because if you draft a quarterback, and we've seen this how many times, when you draft a quarterback, you got to make
who he drafted last time.
Right. Sure. Or we can look at, Matt Nagy and Mitch Trubisky, or Brian Flores and Tua, or whatever comparison.
Well, remember, Brian Flores didn't want Tua.
That's true.
Remember that.
You can make any of those marriages, right? If McDaniels, they're not going to draft a quarterback, at least in the 1st round this year, but let's say they draft a quarterback in the 1st round next year and move on from Derek Carr. Now the McDaniels Ziegler experience rides on them making that quarterback work.
Right.
If that quarterback tanks, then they're going to get fired. But with Derek Carr, I feel like they have some stability there, and they probably are a 9-10 win team next year. So I think that's the way that they're looking at it. I think McDaniels might have learned his lesson with Tim Tebow. And I know that Tebow just wasn't a good quarterback in the NFL. Now it's just a bad pick because of a talent evaluation thing. But hitching your wagon to the young QB when you don't have the job security of, let's say, like a Bill Belichick, right, is a really tough thing to do for a coach that's on his last leg. Like, if Josh McDaniels doesn't make it work this time, he's never going to be a head coach again in the NFL. So that's the way that I look at it with McDaniels.